Parental alienation can clearly affect all family members. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, even grandparents. Here are some of their stories.
I always felt that I had a normal, loving relationship with my children and felt very close to them. However, it seemed that my wife deliberately left me out of decisions concerning them from an early age. Examples, things like swimming lessons, violin lessons, which she'd book without consulting me. I clearly remember her saying to me that she would never come between me and the girls, but I guess this changed once she realised that she was caught up in a system that assisted her every step of the way. I received a phone call from my wife about 5 minutes after having spoken to my middle daughter on the phone, and she basically said to me, "You're not seeing the girls," and she just kept repeating the same thing over and over again. "You're not seeing the girls, you're not seeing the girls." When my wife stopped contact, I immediately phoned my solicitor, who told me that whatever I did, I wasn't to go round to my former home. My experience with the family law system is that it's broken and no one really benefits from it except those who make their livings. The costs of the legal process to me have been in excess of £15,000. CAFCAS, according to their motto, put children first, but that isn't my experience. The girls were interviewed by CAFCAS. My eldest daughter said that she no longer wanted to see me, which in itself was a pretty traumatic thing to hear. That was then repeated to the judge, and without apparently any sort of long decision making, the judge said to me that what I was about to hear was probably going to be quite distressing, but that I should remember that any contact is meaningful contact. He went on to say that he was going to allow me to write to my children once a month and send them small gifts at appropriate times. I think my daughter said she didn't want to see me because she had been influenced in some way over the previous 3 months. I hadn't had any contact with her at all since the day that my wife stopped me from seeing them, and obviously over that period of time she had plenty of opportunity to subtly manipulate them to say whatever it was that she wanted them to say in court. Children don't naturally hate their parents unless they've been taught to do so. I haven't had any explanation from my daughter as to why she didn't want to see me, and court ordered that I could write to my children once a month, and that is initially what I did. Now the court also told my wife that she was to encourage my children to respond to my letters. Well, all the letters that I wrote, presents I sent, cards I sent, I have never in over 3 years received a single reply. The only contact I've had from all of my daughters has been a vitriolic, hateful text message from my eldest daughter. I've no idea whether my ex-wife has a new partner. However, it does seem crazy to me that the courts can prevent me from seeing my kids and yet take no interest in who their potential new dad is. I've not really been able to come to terms with not seeing my children at all since August 2006, and I don't think I ever will. I decided to target a judge's roof who lived in my village, and I ended up going up on his roof for 2 days with a large banner which told my kids that I love them. The last few years I've felt anger, despair, depression, I've felt suicidal, and an ongoing sorrow that I'm not part of their lives. The pain that I've gone through over this process pales into insignificance compared to the damage that I believe has been done to my children.
Well, I lost contact with my children. They're now in their 30s, and it seemed to happen gradually after the split up with my husband. My eldest daughter was 19 before the break actually happened, and I knew for years beforehand that I was losing them. How it affects a parent emotionally is that you seem to be in a constant process of grief. You can't understand why your children are so hateful towards you. The final break came a few years ago after I'd managed to build up a little relationship with 2 grandchildren. I was allowed to see them about 4 times a year, and even that was due to a wonderful son-in-law that I've got. But eventually something happened that flipped my daughter, my younger daughter. I received a letter from her which said that I was a very poisonous person. She must protect her children from me, and I was never to see them again. I felt that my life was completely finished. I had nothing to live for. I was filled with shock and grief. The only thing that kept me going was that I'd heard on Radio 4 about grandparents going to court, and they were putting their cases under Section 8 of the 1989 Children's Act, which is the same section that the dads go to court with. And they were going to court for a contact order to see their grandchildren. And what helped me was joining Families Need Fathers, and I went to court with Mackenzie Friends to help me. I went through the whole process. I think it was 8 times I went to court. I came away with an indirect contact order. So I've been using that to keep in touch with my beloved grandchildren. I spent a lot of time during the 80s working with the women's peace movement, and it really used to concern us that the macho image of men being warlike soldiers did a great disservice to men's humanity. And in this next generation of men that I've seen coming forward, they have been able to readdress that. They're not ashamed of pushing a pram and being a hands-on dad. And yet what do we see but so many CAFCAS officers, for example, having a down on men? And yet these dads who want contact with their children, who want that relationship, who want their children to have a rewarding relationship with them, they are the ones that are being pushed back by the courts. 11% of divorces and separations which aren't resolved between the 2 parents, and where the children can end up as being tug-of-war children. I rather think that the 4% of psychopathic or sociopathic people are concentrated in that 11%. In the past, we've come to realise that things like paedophilia are very, very dangerous for children and are happening. And parental alienation is a similar kind of thing. It is a form of emotional abuse of the child, and it affects somebody for their whole life.
My little girl, I took a full role in raising her. I changed her nappies, bathed her, washed her, did everything a dad would want and should be doing. And I enjoyed every minute of it. After the breakup, we initially were seeing each other at the children. She would bring them round quite freely. She wasn't withholding them or anything. I'd play with them, talk to them, carry on as normal. The only point was that they would go away at the end of the evening or the end of the day. My ex-partner said she was finding it harder and harder to come round. For what reason, I don't know. With this, I was seeing less and less of my children. I was getting various bits of advice. I was told to go to like a mediator that could possibly help. This I suggested to my ex-partner. I've done everything I possibly can, I believe, to keep in touch with the children. However, the children are being governed by the mum. I've attempted to go to mediation 6 times. Each time it's been turned away. She's moved away, so my only contact is through her solicitors. Finally got to court. Up until this moment, nobody had said anything about the reasons why I couldn't see my children. I'm sat in the courtroom expecting an honourable judge to decide that my child is best off with both parents and should have as much time with both parents as possible. Allegations were then thrown at me without any proof or basis. Based on those allegations, I was told that I could only see my child in what, for the first time I've ever heard, was a contact centre. I was absolutely horrified and disgusted at the web of deceit that went on in the contact centre. There's an ongoing investigation, and I've since learned that the contact centre has now closed down due to just some of the findings. Legal and court fees so far, I'd estimate about £14,000. That includes some of the costs of the contact centre, that the prices were fluctuating up and down from week to week. I just felt like my child was being held at ransom. I don't believe you can ever come to terms with losing contact with your children. It's almost like a living bereavement. If it was a bereavement, there's closure to it. You can come to terms with that. But knowing that your children are still there and they still may want your help, they're crying out for their dad. The roles were reversed. I would promote shared parenting. I would make sure that the mother sees the children every single time. I would not deny anybody the parental rights.